Alex Answer here. It is January 9th, 2019. The government shutdown may be leading to a shutdown of food stamps in this nation, which could trigger other things. I don't think it's by accident they have $800 billion for a space war program to fight China and Russia. Gee, I wonder who we're going to borrow that money from. It's all quite interesting. Welcome. I'm Alex Ansary. We're going to be covering a number of things today. I want to maybe talk about some other lighter things before we just jump into the heart of a topic that has a lot of people's focus at this time. Again, remember, as we go through these uncertain times, problem, reaction, solution. So I'm going to say this as we begin. I'm having issues getting my main microphone to compute with the computer. Definitely not a techie. This computer could be on its way out. So I just want to make that statement that I was working on this for about an hour and it's just not working. Unfortunately, I don't have the hardware knowledge that a guy like me involved in multimedia production should have. So that's one thing that I'm kind of wrestling with. Today, fortunately, I was able to get to town, get some potatoes. Here are some organic potatoes. I don't think that I buy organic enough when it comes to potatoes. I think it's more important to think about things like that with things like potatoes and other vegetables. I believe that they did do studies on GMO potatoes having an adverse effect on rats. But why do I bring up potatoes in light of this potential EBT shutdown? Also, think about how much they might charge at a restaurant for just a few potatoes fried and put into a nice container. And so there's a lot of things that people enjoy here in the first world. And what I enjoy as I warm up here is the discipline that I am building as I live here off the grid. So there's times, and I'm a meat eater, in which I have to go without meat, in which the only options available to me are things like ramen, potatoes, eggs, other things. And those are times to be grateful for things that I have. But there's also times in which I run out of coffee and I make myself be okay with that. For example, I just went 5 days without caffeine. Now, there was a side effect. I didn't feel as enthused this week about making YouTube videos. This is also downtime for me, for those that don't know. And I've been preparing for this for a long time, and I think this is going to be more of a regular thing for me to take off multiple days, if you will, and to even pull back from watching some things that are on the internet, but watching some things. But when I do watch things, it's more downloading and observing, kind of like yin and yang. So there's a time to be learning, meditating, musing, and a time for action, moving forward, things of that nature. I'm in this year of 2019 when my voice gets a little better. Now it's sounding a little bit better at the moment compared to where it's been. I'd like to see things get a little bit better. I'd like to see my microphone connect with this computer, but I will not only be reading at some point the Emerald tablets. I will also be getting into the Hermetic vision of him talking to the great dragon, if you will, and getting into maybe some other forms of spirituality or some other text, for example. There's a number of things, basically, at least 5 or 6. And it seems that it's really critical that we focus our attention on this knowledge that is available to us instead of just simply being in the modern conspiratorial, defensive, semi-paranoid, manufactured psychosis state of consciousness, because that's what they want. And there's a lot of that going around right now. YouTube, it seems, has become a very dangerous neighborhood, not just at various hours of the day or night, but just in general. And that's another discussion that we can have at another point in time, right? So I'm grateful for the simple things. And as someone that lives without conventional running water, without conventional electricity, using the power of the sun right now to generate all of this, I have been adjusting to a life without certain luxuries out of a belief that started years ago that at some point in my lifetime, we would see some sort of systematic shutdown. The very first time I bought full, whole, organic, with cash, by the way, organic grains, I spent about $300 and got about 300 pounds. So it was a variety of things from wheat to black beans to quinoa to white rice to amaranth, and about 6 or 7 other things, not to mention garbanzo beans. They had fun actually making hummus from scratch, mind you, and not even necessarily just using white garbanzo beans, but using the garbanzo beans that I think were darker, and there was some other legumes, and there's a number of things that I haven't gotten into. The point is, one could even say that I got into motion and I got active a little bit early. Some could even say a little too early. But I believe that the writing was seen on the wall back in 2007, 2008. But I will also say that we've been led on wild goose chases by deceivers in the alternative media. And there's the cry wolf bombardment syndrome, which takes place where if a person is pre-warned about certain things and told certain things are going to collapse, that martial law is coming, World War III is here when it's not actually here. When people get bombarded with that type of rhetoric, which unfortunately is very popular in the alternative media and mainstream media, a lot of people just tune out. And a lot of us have been programmed to call all of these people zombies, the people that are choosing to not be super amped up all the time, basically suffering from adrenal fatigue, like a lot of us. Again, I just mentioned 5 days, no coffee. Let me take a sip of that peppermint. My peppermint or black tea? But like I said, I want my voice to be a little bit more over the winter, if you will, because they're dealing with less light and I'm at higher elevation and isolation. So, and a lot of depressing news. So there's a number of different things that my energies have to contend with. When I go to sleep to the sound of Tibetan bowls, boing, or other types of spiritual chants or mantras from the East, as kind of, and I'm already off topic, another spiritual protection measure. Because a person like me, it's not always necessarily psychic attack or even necessarily energy vampires, but the nature of the things that I talk about have such a high charge that when a number of people with various energies and intelligences and spirits around them are drawn to my work, the energies could be and can feel at times pretty heavy. And that's why it's important on my part, just like we have to look at our diet. Are we eating organic enough? Are we eating enough fruits, vegetables? I'm grabbing for carrots at the moment. I'm grabbing for carrots. And I have a couple other items that are really cheap, basically, affordable. I haven't bought any wheat yet, although I actually have some in a grinder stored away and I bought years ago. And some quinoa, at least 30 pounds stored for backup. Maybe a little bit less than that. It's actually time to start ordering some more. But I've had some time to train myself, is what I'm getting at, and see where I'm lacking. Lacking in terms of basic non-perishable supplies, lacking with regards to current cooking abilities. But you'd be surprised, right? In a starvation situation, how creative some people can be when they're going, okay, we've got nothing else to eat. What do we have to work with? Just recently, right? I already ran out of eggs, can't make it down to the store because I'm snowed in. Oh, there's this package of Malta meal that apparently has been on me for about a year. And I've probably only made malto meal a few times. And it may not be the best, right? But there could be situations to where a creative group of people in a grid down situation with the right ingredients can make a really good pizza. All that comes from things that could be canned or from the wheat. Then, of course, we have spaghetti, back to the jar, number of different things. And so it was about, we'll get to the EBT thing in just a little bit. But we're starting with kind of a long-winded intro that I've been seeing around the wall for a while. And there was a reason why I was even doing meetups. I remember, and there was a group of us that were like, there were signs that it could have happened under Bush. And there were signs in the early days of Obama after the banker bailout that we could have a full-on systematic crash of our economy. So I remember there was a group of us, my blue hair, his girlfriend, current, which met at my meetup, an old friend of mine, other friends of mine. And for a while there, we would do these meetups where we would go into Forest Park and walk around and practice doing, like not the lean-to, but the pyramid water filter with the bandanas and the different layers. I believe we would be done with charcoal, grass, some other things. That wasn't exactly my specialty, but there were things that I was seeing. And there could be times in which we have almost that sense of prophetic insight to where a lot of people are tapped in. It could come from the media messaging, whether it's perceivably positive or negative media messaging. There's nothing wrong with being prepared, but one could say that there is harm in the cry wolf bombardment behavior that we see from the certain individuals, right? I can leave their names out of it, right? But I've gone on enough rants, and you know where I'm going with this, and you know who I'm talking about, and just even the archetype. It's not really about a few people. It's about the opportunists that are involved in the alternative media and the survival industry. And so be prepared, think outside the snap box, think outside the box of certain things, and practice living with less. That includes without electricity. I guess recently there were some ATM failures from the recent solar storm, and that was fairly mild. So we could begin to see a cascade of these type of events. Even myself, I was without the internet for a day. But when you're in a state of mind to where, okay, right, I may not have everything that I need, but let's just say things break down for a few days to a few weeks. How many of us can go that long without needing to interact with a few people? I at least have a few weeks. I'd like to be where I have a few months, and I'd like to improve things. But we should also understand there's also the threat of natural disasters. Now, as we deal with this government shutdown, we have other issues other than EBT. Apparently, some people may not be paid that are government employees. We have the reality of unemployment not being issued, and there may be many other things. Apparently, there's a lot of people from the TSA that aren't working. Are they allowing things to break down with regards to airport security so they have their event blamed on their convenient group? That again brings, the threat of them back into the picture to the front of the house. And it seems to be moving back to the front of the house to where Trump in his world, for better or for worse, would benefit from an event, problem, reaction, solution. Now, we talked about the border situation, problem, reaction, solution. They can even manufacture something that has the people whipped up into a frenzy and even saying to themselves, this is a part of a grander conspiracy to destroy our way of life. There could be ways, however, in which they want it to look that way. Okay, so we have a cat here, and we're running the audio off of the laptop because, of course, now, kitty, and I'm letting you be inside. But here's what we'll do. Right? We have these cans right here. They were 57 cents each. Now, I don't do this for the cat all the time, right? But here you go. This was to allow you to be in here while I record. I knew this would happen. Yeah, so, and in terms of other things, and there's certain things that I'm trying to just discipline myself, even if the body craves, especially being up here at higher elevation. It may crave a little bit more protein. It may crave a little bit more sugar, whether it's a higher form of protein or a higher form of sugar like fruit as opposed to candy. That's on me, though, to try to eat healthier. Some onions here. Here is some peanut butter. To stay away from things like soda and to stay away from things like, too much coffee. Making sure to bring in other things like tea, herbal tea. And certain things, I pretty much have to teach on my own to live this way of life. And there's ways in which I can improve. We all can do, a little bit better with regards to living within our means or being healthy. There are people that are millionaires, for example, or not even, but just use that as an example, people that are wealthy. And some people that are wealthy that have such poor eating habits, right? They may have a really strong addiction to eating way too much red meat or way too much of something. And they may have a genetic disposition. I met one person in the past in Texas, to where, and their diet and their decision-making could be so broken down, even if they are their own CEO of their own company, to where their wife literally has to pack their lunch and put in things like carrots, put in things like quinoa, and put in something like that may, because a lot of people have learned about quinoa, by the way, as an alternative to just rice that has more amino acids, that has more protein, that it's a healthier option if somebody can afford it. And there's many other things, right? But some people, even some wealthy people in this example, have no self control, because we do live in a type of society where we can put a whole number of different things in our body. So there has to be a sense of discipline in a world where there are so many choices. Just because it's a buffet and it says all you can eat doesn't mean that you should go to that buffet and eat everything that's on that menu. We want to think about certain things. Having said all that, so people aren't really ready for the EBT shutdown. Instead of just sit here and rip and read, we don't really know what's going to happen. But with regards to Trump's speech last night, he didn't specifically mention that I know of the SNAP program that like 40 million people are on. And it's a nation, by the way, that if they were to go then to the churches and other things, if they didn't have some money set aside to buy some eggs or something like that, or some potatoes, think about those people with families and no cooking skills. I understand. I understand the grievance that a lot of people have. People talk about waste of the system. People talk about a lot of things, a lot of rational arguments. Then there's also other rational arguments. Well, don't you find this interesting? And they're talking about this and fighting for this and 5.7 billion for the wall for this. But they got this blank check for the space war program that might not even be effective. $800 billion is a crop load of money, folks. Like, that's what rings in my ear. Not like which came before all this. 800 billion for a space war program. And you've also, of course, heard that just because they're pulling some troops, it's a repositioning for the next conflict. Afghans will continue to die, and they will be attacked from the air, as has been the way for at least a decade. Okay, so they're pulling out some ground troops. The needless bloodshed, and some could argue genocide, will continue in a world now that's desensitized to not go, by the way, how many of those people are dying? Okay, we'll just leave it at that. And that's what gets me in this whole weird sordid affair of the modern day and age, modern politics, modern spiritual movements, supposed spiritual movements, the modern alternative media. I think that it's good that anti-media and others, they're shining the light on Yemen, others. But for the most part, just to remind you, people still generalize about 1 million dead in Iraq and or Afghanistan. Or they'll say 1 million in Iraq and they won't mention Afghanistan. And they'll be using old numbers from 10 years ago without going, like, we read every day, 500 people gone. However many people gone. And most people believe that ISIS was created by our own government. And this is the unfortunate thing. So we see them literally go in like a knife through the Middle East, and all these innocent people at funerals, weddings, mosques, up in smoke. In some cases, 500. Can you imagine that? And see, but the modern Western world looks at that and go, oh my God, look at all these like things going on. We must maintain this, without realizing there's a reason why those events are taking place. Problem, reaction, solution. Problem, reaction, solution. To the point where the leftist NPR style of reporting gives a certain reason why they stay in Afghanistan to the people of the left. Oh, it's for women's rights. They're fighting the Taliban. Why the hell would a group like the Taliban still be in any type of position to be doing jack shit after the U.S. has been there for several decades? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Everything about the Afghanistan occupation defies logic. And the very fact that people don't even talk enough about its history and how at one point it was way more stable before the time of the burqa. And there was a time where people had veils and things of that nature. But the type of thing in post-Taliban era, this type of thing, then Alex Jones goes on this rant to where he's describing them basically to a T as subhuman. Now, in a world of global affairs, tensions between the United States and China in the East China Sea and South China Sea, as well as China threatening that they're about to take back Taiwan, there's bigger fish to fry, capiche? Anytime you got a situation, you got a provocateur in which the whole world's watching one man, and the left falsely says that he's been deplatformed. Let me tell you why I made that statement. Yeah, because they actually made that statement. The guest host for the friggin' Sam Cedar show couldn't believe my ears. They're basically acting like it's worth it. Like, to stop the cancer, just cut off the hand or something, not just cut off the finger. Bad analogy. But they couldn't conceive of, even when their own people have seen their own Patreon accounts taken down. including Antifa or Antifa. But they'll still say it's worth it if they feel like they're holding back the other dudes, the far right. They don't seem to understand, right? YouTube is still suggesting Alex Jones to me all over the place. It's not like, whoa, we need to like minimize this Alex Jones spread. It's like recommended. And I'm like, okay, what's his latest rant? Oh, he's back to this, let's demonize these people as subhumans. And it goes into this monologue that's clearly scripted as he shows the burqa. And it's like, it's not like there's something very personal that they did to him. After all, this was the dude they started running around saying 9/11, da. See, now the AI YouTube algorithm will pop up these little info notes under the video. Everything about YouTube has become so Orwellian as they suppress the real truthers and rise up or bring to life these other fruitcakes. But I will recognize those other channels that are out there, including people of color, that have done quite well. People of various backgrounds, but they don't talk about these things. I'm not here to attack them for not talking about these things. I understand that other people have a life path. Other people are going to be passionate about their own things. But it tells you a lot about the world, where one would have to remain silent about the things that matter for the algorithm to even recognize them and allow them to grow. It tells you something about the real world. Not so much of Google or YouTube that's full of East Indians saying, thank you, come again. But the real YouTube and Google that caters to the craziest of the craziest. I made a separate video, but I haven't uploaded it, but I can just bring it up now. I already brought it before. YouTube almost exclusively recommends content from the right. There's times in which it'll be recommending some other people, but it really seems adamant about getting me specifically to buy into or watch certain types of content creators that are full of absolute shit. Now, I don't know whether it's a practical joke, right? Or the AI computer of YouTube just smokes crack or mainlines it. I'm not really sure, but I don't think that the program's broken. I think that the AI program of YouTube is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. And it's pretty bizarre. It's like dealing with something like Skynet. So, on the topic of YouTube and going to EBT, was it Grandmaster Supreme? He's sitting there on his YouTube channel saying most of the people on EBT are illegal immigrant foreigners. Now, that is not factually correct. There are people that vote for Donald Trump that are on food assistance. There are people that are straight up homeless, right? And off-gridders, people of various levels of economic status that have voted for Donald Trump. So there are people that voted for Donald Trump that will be affected by this. From what I can gather in the mainstream media, it's like straight down the line from the people on one side. This is straight the Democrats, Chuck Schumer. On the other side, it's the opposite. And there isn't this type of, well, neither of these dudes really represent us. Schumer the clown or Trump the clown, right? So this is between two performance actors, basically, and or others that are part of a deeper, elaborate agenda somehow, some way, and they are reshaping the future of this nation. I don't believe any of this is organic. And just knowing that they have a blank check for the military-industrial complex, even if you agree with Trump, the policies, you know what I'm saying? You're in a certain like political mindset. They're able-bodied. They should be able to, and you need to be able to think tank. But wait a minute. If this happens, there's going to be certain repercussions. There's going to be repercussions to the stock market. There's going to be repercussions for those shareholders, to those companies that are dependent on a certain amount of sales. Walmart, King Scoopers, Fred Meyer, Safeway, just go down the line. And so the greater reality is that there would be a ripple effect. Again, reasons I'm off the grid, number 144. But see, nobody would be totally safe in an economic collapse to where people can't afford food. See, what concerns me is, first of all, this doesn't need to happen. What would be like something that's not so concerning? Okay, it goes away, but it comes back. But to have like a government shutdown that looms for years, that's almost designed through these actors, because they're the ones making the decision. whether you believe it's the Democrats or Republicans. Let's just say the Democrats or Republicans, just to be fair to everybody. So the Republicans have put on a show, and you have a controlled media and the mind control psyops that's like, okay, it's this side that did it. Okay, it's that side that did it. And that side's like really immoral. They're all like for like, raping you and beheading you. And this side over here is like moral. They're like with God. And like you hear this like black and white rhetoric that is not based in truth. How can you pick a side? You can pick a side of morality over immorality, but you could still maintain an independent position and go, even if those people may sound like me, I'm not going to get in their club because they are not authentic. They're in this for the wrong reasons. And that's the truth about the matter. There may be some genuine people that are Republicans and Democrats that just got sucked in with the wrong crowd. You know what I mean? We all make mistakes, right? Boys will be boys, girls will be girls. Not everybody evolves into manhood and womanhood. And so you have nature taking over. Groupthink is groupthink. It is the way of this world. Also, right, we're going to talk about this in another video. The illusions of separation and the perception of value based on skin tone didn't start when this nation was founded and isn't limited to European or Western white nations. You have versions of white supremacy within Muslim communities. Even though their own Quran and belief system forbids it. You can see it in Saudi Arabia. You can see the hierarchy of the races in the perception of many people around the world. Like when you look at the Middle East, whether you knew this or not, it's not just Arabs. That's not how it works. There's a number of different groups, and for some reason, some of the smaller groups that have not been involved in terrorism, for some reason, certain bloodlines are being wiped off the face of the earth. And when I think about Rwanda real hard, I didn't just watch Hotel Rwanda, by the way. I watched 3 2-hour documentaries, and there was almost a slight bit of depression that followed for a few days of the magnitude of the parallels in reality between what the Hutus were doing to the Tutsis with their radio broadcast and that spirit of hatred that I see from Alex Jones, a man that I used to be a fan of, a man that actually inspired me way back in 2002 when I first came across his content. But I knew I was going to be one of the truthers. And I knew this way back when, before Obama was the president, before Trump was elected, way back when it was Bush, right after 9/11. I knew. But I also felt deep within there was something that wasn't quite right about Alex Jones the first day I heard his voice. Now, I was quickly converted, if you will, for a short time to be a fan, and later decided to create my own platform. Was able to interview him a few times. That was the old Alex Jones. It might as well be a different person. But I will say I do believe it is the same person, but there's been a very large shift to the dark side. And some people are not conscious enough to be able to differentiate between where he was and where he is now. Okay? And it can't be helped. But what I see from what he's doing, and of all the different things, you're going to focus on the woman in the burqa. And of all the different complex things you can discuss, and it always comes back to that. You need to ask the question, especially if you even agree with them. Why? And why was Alex Jones featured on CNN to be presented as the #1 9/11 truther in 2006? He was on Showbiz Tonight with, I believe, a guy named AJ. They talked about another guy named Charlie Sheen. Maybe you've heard about him. Maybe there's a time you remember Alex Jones was on The View. Maybe you've heard of a guy named Piers Morgan. Maybe you've heard of the BBC. Maybe you've heard of Coast to Coast AM. Maybe you've heard of Megyn Kelly. Maybe you've heard of Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama. All of these people and more. Ooh, Alex did a symbol. What's the open hand mean? What you need to understand is these are concrete examples of the system doing like sexual things to Alex Jones that I will not put into English words. Like really knobbing it, really working it, like wah, 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 wah. Waka, 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 in a really crazy, bizarre kind of way. and then putting them up before the world. And the whole world's like, yeah, Donald Trump, yeah. And they come out and go, now here is the man that helped him. And then like we've seen like this massive, it's like magnetic, but magnetic in the way in which you watch a bug zapper. It's that type of magnetism. Because once you start going down that road, drinking that jungle juice, right? Or ceremoniously putting that tangy tangerine in your coffee, right? Oh, I've met some real weirdos with Alex Jones products in their house. Once you start seeing Alex Jones products in an actual household, watch out. Go for the door real quick, right? Because you got to be at a certain level to think that that man broth, yeah, that man broth, that man seed, oh, it's like a scene out of American Pie, if you want to be kind of literal with it, you know. But yeah, you don't want to go down that road. And if you can reach a point where you go, okay, maybe we've been had, maybe you don't need to admit it to your wife, to me, to anyone else, that you've been had royally, big time. You can have like a private, like come to God moment and go, yeah. If I was to act like that guy or Pete Santilli or somebody else, we would probably have that knock at the door if it was you or me. But when you see these individuals do it, they have the red carpet rolled out. And as they have the red carpet rolled out by the mainstream media, they play professional victims. Look, we've been deplatformed, but Alex Jones himself agreed with Alex Chancery without even intending to. He was bragging the other day, but they've only made us bigger. Our numbers are so much bigger. That was the plan the whole time. And that's what people don't understand about the tech giants and Alex Jones embedded together. They'll never understand that. They can't. It says something about a society that thinks that someone's been victimized when the system helps them reach nearly several billion viewers. Yeah, we may be well beyond the millions. You look at YouTube right now, it's constantly like throwing at me all of these different YouTubers that are obsessed with every word that he's saying. And I'll go and click and watch maybe a minute or two, and then I'll bounce out real quick and hit the back button. And it's like, holy crap, he is inciting. He is that radio broadcast from Rwanda. This is real. These things do happen. But on that topic, the way in which the world powers, right, stood down, and the way they just admit in these documentaries that are mainstream, Frontline and others, that they stood down, that Bill Clinton did nothing, right? You understand it's not a conspiracy theory. Somebody needs to read a few books to understand what happened in Rwanda and to understand that the Belgians created the racial difference perception in the eyes of the Hutus and Tutsis. They split the culture. There's, of course, a deeper history. And the Hutus grew up hearing that the Tutsis were aliens. They were already dehumanized for a significant period of time. And there may have been some horrible things that were done to the Hutus by the Tutsis. You see, the way that the systematic world elite and darkness works, it will create campaigns of hate over time by creating have and have nots and oppressing some people at such a barbaric level that it is predictable that at some point in time they may rebel and revolt. In the case of Rwanda, you have 800,000 to 1 million that perished over the course of 100 days as the radio station, the InfoWars of Rwanda, was doxing the Tutsis. So they would listen to the radio that was not shut down. Oh, they're going to respect free speech in that case, as it's literally used as a weapon. But in the book, which I haven't read, but the documentary is interviewing a UN commander that supposedly was screwed over by the UN, according to the story that he's presenting. So he was basically left there without the troops that he requested. And he said he had to, though, because of his position, meet with some of the Hutu generals. So these are the people that were killing the Tutsis. And because of his position, there was a level of conversation that had to take place periodically. And he basically describes a very cold sense or handshake when meeting with these militia leaders, these Rwanda Hutu warlords. And if you saw the movie Hotel Rwanda, there's a scene where he goes in to get supplies, and you can see that they have a whole area where naked women that have been raped are caged and beaten and just rotating one by one. See, and these are the nightmares of war. And you'll just see that in about 3 seconds. It'll just be a 3-second clip. But that 3-second clip is reality for many people in war zones. And I fear the future of America under the fire of what's to come. So you got a situation, we're talking about repositioning the troops. They manufacture this shutdown, and they divide the people down on the ground that don't know very much and program them to think the other side did that. The other side took your lunch. And whatever you believe as to who took your lunch, best believe they got elements of both the left and right ready to rise up. Different colors, different ethnicities, different political backgrounds, driven by social media. I'm going to start wrapping things up. So there's a reason to preserve myself in this message that I pull back from a lot of email activity or social media. It's only been in recent months that I'm cutting certain cords with elements of the internet. I don't spend a lot of time writing or reading. I spend a lot of time pondering. I spend a lot of time, unfortunately, going, is this safe for the audience of today? Because at this point, it literally is in its tears. It's not just one thing. I've seen a major shift in ways in which people have responded to my truth over the years. Right now is one of the more positive times, but it's positive through you and those of you that support me. Whether it be the positive energy prayers or people that kick me $5 here or there, $20 to keep me going and to support what it is that I do. And remember, there's a lot of other videos, if you're new, that are on this channel. There's also a few people that we're now at 26 subscribers or members to outsidethebox.vhx.tv. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank the recent people. I think our all-time high is 27, right? I really want to see us get up to 33, get up to 36, get up to 39. But long term, I have a very strong suspicion that it'll be the future of my video presentations. You know, there may be certain things that my intuition, here or there, sometimes it's louder than other times, but the way that I see it, certain things, especially for the small content creator who's not the mainstream media, certain things are going to be buried. Certain things are going to hurt our channel in a real day and age to where channels really do go down. Right? So people need to be thinking about these things. They need to be thinking about the cascade of different events from the geopolitical to the economic. I do think that we're going to see a lot of things shift. But what I stay away from is a lot of the analysis from others. And I don't need to start dropping a bunch of names, but there are certain people out there that are super popular. Even some people that I interviewed 10 years ago. They're like superstars right now in the prophecy of the end times, gloom and doom, fear porn, the cream of the crop, right? They may also be predicting at the same time that Bitcoin's going to go to the moon. And we're not just talking about a few YouTubers that I mentioned before, but people that I'm not mentioning. They just got these talking points. They're just shared with everybody else. And so even though I know these things are coming, I don't listen to most YouTubers unless I know they have a history of being beyond the left-right paradigm. Unless they have a history of at least recognizing that overseas there's a culling taking place, whether they choose to use that word or another word. But if someone can't even recognize that, right? And, Mark Passio, I listened to his lecture on the Hermetic teachings, the 7 principles. And he talks about the New Age movement and ufology and him trying to explain to them and many people that, I've had him speak, but, he said, hey, I just got to put my foot down. You guys say you want free energy. You guys say you want this. You first have to end slavery. You don't get that until you first end slavery, or what I've said about free energy technology. is that if you just gave some of these people free energy technology, they'd start blowing things up with it or developing highly powered military weapons. And that's what our system does with the technology that it has. It develops powerful beam rays, even things that can burn flesh. And it'll do that, right? And spend tax dollars on that, on weapons that destroy, that are trillions in cost to the taxpayer dollars. And they will literally create a set of circumstances that can lead to people being cut off from a food assistance program, while other people that aren't suffering as much as some other people, more so in certain places in the country than others, maybe certain families, people that are generally destitute in areas where there are no jobs, in areas where there's just one Walmart. And that's never a good sign of a local economy. When you just have a Walmart, that's never a good sign. That's a bad sign for local business. Oh, it's good for Walmart. Ooh, it's good for those people that may work at Walmart, that are willing to work at Walmart. I mean, you might as well go to work for Homeland Security, because that's who will be watching you, because they're already watching us as customers. You ever go to that self-checkout? Wave at that camera above. Doesn't matter if you're looking down. It's going to get you right here. There could be a database that's literally firing away somewhere saying, oh, boom, this person's here. Oh, boom, this person's there. Maybe Homeland Security can have a few games and tests to see if they can track people based on the surveillance grid literally built into Walmart. But ignorant people that want to say that our country is so economically solid and great won't even recognize that we have some longstanding problems still in this nation. So we would see a cascade of events if we were to deal with an extended EBT crisis. But going back to where I said in the beginning, we're seeing media reports about this, but I didn't see Trump bring it up or put out the warning. The way that he did that with call your congressmen, these could be things happening now, just further a divide. So you have a psychosis with Republicans and Democrats, in a psychosis that the other party screwed over the nation in the food stamp program, instead of them having a coordinated battle in which no matter what, they can't reach some sort of agreement. So the people suffer because of the decisions of a few. Now think about that. Does that really make very much sense? Does this really seem organic to you? I'm just going to leave that in your corner. I'm going to let you think about this, right? Because I know I've done a lot of thinking about it. I do nothing but think about things. And I believe that this is absolutely manufactured. If we see something happen on a massive scale coming up in February, this would be something on purpose. Why, Alex? Why? To cause a certain reaction that would bring out the big guns, that would start to phase us in, that would bring people to a certain level of desperation. Now, when people are hungry to a certain degree and they don't have their food, you're going to have an increase in robberies. You're going to have an increase potentially in homicides. You're going to have an increase in domestic violence. So even if you have an opinion that everybody should, and that's fine for you to have that opinion, that's okay, right? There's no need to fight about it. It's more than your opinion about that. Fine, you have your opinion. It's more than whether you're right or you're wrong. Fine, okay, you're right. But that's not going to stop the reality of what follows when those people go to swipe and nothing happens. At that point, you can have full-blown riots during certain periods. Now, if the powers that be are trying to get people to react during certain periods, they can pull the EBT rug out from under people's legs during, say, something like a full moon and or solar flares, or a certain event to where it is believed from their perception of things, the social engineers, where they're going to get the type of reaction that they're looking for. It's also believed, with regards to solar flares and the ratio of activism and wars, that when the sun goes into a deep minimum, that human activity, that human excitability index, which is off the charts during the maximum, is lower during the minimum. Which means if the government wants to push through certain policies and they don't want a revolt, but they want people to go along with it or a new war, they'll do it during a minimum. There may be an agenda to where it is about the getting people to rise up, but they ain't really changing nothing. They're just rising up and following the Pied Piper. Occupy Wall Street, baby. Went nowhere, brought a lot of people together, thought they were changing things up. With just a mob rule situation. Pre-Antifa. It's the truth. A lot of people thinking that Obama was trying to legitimately change things while calling themselves part of Occupy, what was this? So just blame the Republicans still, even though Obama's in office? It's a Republicans' war. Yeah, but Obama's expanding the drone attacks. They're just like, I was facing these disconnects with people that were there talking about student loan debt that were insulting me and my questions about the people that are dying, 911. One guy was calling me fringe media. I interviewed him as his girlfriend in Dallas, Texas. And it was more about this entitled young man that was wearing this little necklace showing $40,000 in debt around his necklace. Maybe to get sympathy, maybe to attract media interviews. It was clearly there to attract media interviews, and he attracted me. And I asked him and his girlfriend, type in Alex Yancey Visits Occupy, and it should still be there. It should still be on my channel. So we're 8 years past me doing that. And that old friend in Texas was filming, and I edited that and put that up on my channel. And I asked them, as long as these people continue to die in large numbers, how has racism been dealt with? Because that was like a big thing for them. Obama, we elected Obama. We elected a black man. We're not racist. We've moved beyond the age of slavery. We've moved beyond our genocidal past. Au contraire, monsieur. Monsieur. You take a look at the silence today regarding the things going on overseas, and you look at how it's just focused on people fighting in the streets, right? Or fighting on TV, or Chuck Schumer versus Donald Trump. And people look at this and go, that's real. This is a real conflict between politicians. And the way that they're having their conflict, that somehow is deciding whether or not we're going to eat. And it's coming down to a wall or eat, heat or eat in some cases, when you're dealing with heating costs and food. And so all of this has a deep psychological programming, and it's building and it's building. So anytime you pull the food away from people, you can have problems, even if you have a philosophy, right? Everybody should right. But there's also a way to kind of phase a program or 40 million people off at once. We already have a high level of crime. Let me tell you about a story that was heartbreaking that I heard out of Portland, Oregon. Go to Coin6 to watch a video for yourself. Black man and his family were riding the Max, and some other teens came on the Max with their boom box. He told them to turn down their boom box. They knocked down his teeth, knocked out 4 of his teeth, right in front of his wife and his daughter. And they may have even been the same ethnicity. They didn't show the pictures of the juveniles. Now, this is before EBT cards are shut off. Notice how they bring up all this racial strife, right? Notice how the all-intrusive white woman is always in the news in these viral videos now, doing really crazy things. I don't agree with the level of racism and possession. When I see the mainstream media run video after video after video, I know that there is a way in which even MSNBC says who runs the world, and they showed 5 white women, white female faces. Who runs the world? I guess there's a video on Secular Talk. I just saw the thumb and the snapshot, and that told me enough. No, 5 women don't run the world. But women are involved in this and allowing the new world order and all these things to continue. But they're not at the tip top of the pyramid. Hillary Clinton is involved in it, but she's not the sole mastermind skeletor. There are forces of darkness, Luke, that are pulling the strings, that are higher that you don't see. So a lot of people are not at this level of awareness, and it's troublesome. So I just want to conclude by saying, if you do see like an extended, this type of a thing, it could be like a sign of things to come. And we're in the winter right now. One of the worst ways to blow the kneecaps off of anyone, by the way, just in general, economically, is if they're in a bad bind during the winter when things are cold and things are moving a little bit slower because of the ice and extreme weather conditions. Now, if you were to see something like a systematic shutdown during a period in which there may or may not be a sharp increase in crop failures, we'll have to see where the solar minimum projections in a year or two, whether there was the same level of crop catastrophe as was predicted, to the point where there really are food riots caused by a number of things. But it's pretty coincidental when you see a number of things sandwiched in this particular time-space reality. So that's all for now. I want to thank those of you that do contribute to this video cast. When I have the ability to improve certain things with regards to computers and other things that would enhance your listening and viewing experience, I will do that. But there are certain things, right, in which my hands may be tied. When I'm able to get another webcam, I think that would be cool. I think it would be cool to get a USB port. Maybe that's the issue. Who knows, right? But I think that it's amazing that we have this technology as it is, and I can upload something like this to you from off the grid using satellite internet. And I realize that this is on a microcosmic level, one of the many ways in which we can create our own reality. We can put a message out of truth on YouTube that can help people free themselves from something, or we could unconsciously use the medium to create greater divide in the fallen world of the illusions of separation. What you do with your world and or your channel, if you have one, is up to you. But there are spiritual of the higher and lower realms consequences for our words as well as our actions.